Welcome everybody to the Wake Up Call channel. Today's show I want to talk about what I recently covered in regards to what we all clearly know about cell phones and radiation exposure. It should be very well known now that all of the problems, mental health, people not being able to have babies, all these things comes from those towers that are sitting around right outside our homes. And of course, those phones that are literally giving off EMF frequencies right by our chests, our heads, our crotch, you name it. It's by us and it's affecting us. And this is very interesting to know because I know a lot of you are going to wonder why all of a sudden they're talking about it. We always have to think from the standpoint of, well, if the media is telling us and they're talking about it, then something else is next. And for years, I've been covering this, trying to warn people about how they've openly talked about 6G and eventually getting the cell phone and this technology inside of your body. And this is how I believe they're going to start manipulating people into the tech inside their bodies. Now, you might hear this at first and say, well, if they're going to tell you that a cell phone is a health concern and that radiation exposure is a health concern, how in the world are they going to convince people to go from giving up their phones to putting it in their bodies? But all it will take is very simple propaganda about mixing it into your genetic code, how it becomes a part of you, the Internet of Bodies, these things that we've all talked about. I've talked about it many times for many years. It's one of the reasons I've been silent so many times, is getting this truth out. They've openly told us these things. All it takes is little bits of desensitization, repetition, and marketing this stuff and telling you. All they have to do is tell you that it's beneficial to your health, because just like when the cell phone came out, they didn't tell you that it was bad for your health. We all did. Right? So everybody has gotten so attached to it that it's going to be very difficult to remove them from it. But if they keep pumping stuff out about cancer rates, about health, about how there's an alternative, right? I've talked about wearables going from the phone to wearables to eventually inside of you. They're talking about it now in affiliate markets. This is from Chicago, okay? Pretty incredible that they're actually talking about it, but we have to remind ourselves when they talk about it, there's always an end game. They didn't just wake up all of a sudden and say, hey, I don't know, I don't feel something going on with the cell phone. I should cover it on the news. They're talking about it on the news because they're preparing you for something else. And what they're preparing you for is moving from the phone outside your body to having the technology hooked up inside your body. And I know at first it sounds like we're not going to get, it's almost impossible to convince people of it. Is it? Is it? We have people still lining up to poison themselves. It'll be very easy with the right amount of mind control and propaganda. Look what just aired in Chicago.
Welcome back. New research raising some concerns over the number of items that are transmitting radiation in your home. This radiation can do serious damage. So joining us with more is Joe Sandry. He is VP of Regulatory Affairs and General Counsel at the Environmental Health Trust. Thank you so much for being here, Joe. We appreciate it.
Sure, glad to be here.
Okay, so we understand that one of the major culprits in this radiation, there are cell phones, and we have these on our person all day. Some of us even sleep in close proximity to our phone. So what's the major message about the potential dangers involved here?
One, don't hold the phone to your head. The actual guidelines in your phone say don't do that. Two, don't sleep with it near you. And three, the tests that were revealed that were essentially suppressed for years show, these are FCC tests, government tests, show that the FCC's own guidelines, as old and pathetic as they are, were being exceeded when a phone is 2 millimeters from your head.
Wow. Okay. So update us on this this situation. So you were saying this data has not been available. It was being suppressed?
Correct. We received it through what's called a FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act request. And what's troubling is studies had been done years prior, but had not been revealed to the public. And there'd been a series of lawsuits and other cases about these issues, and none of this had been revealed in those series of lawsuits and other cases.
Wow. Okay. So what can you tell us about the dangers? I mean, a lot of us, we hold the phone right to our ear when we are taking a call. What do we need to know about the safety protocol there?
Buried in the phones is a notice to you. You never see it, but if you go into settings and then go into general, and then you go into legal and regulatory, then you go into RF exposure, which is way, way down in your phone, you'll see a notice that says, hey, keep the phone about 5 millimeters or so from your body.
Okay.
One, you don't know that. It's not aware. You don't see it like on a cigarette label. You don't see a huge print telling you that. Two, there's a series of studies that show both biological and thermal damage occurring to you from the phones. These phones are operate in the same bands as your microwave oven. So there's,
This is, it's super concerning. You mentioned don't sleep with your cell phone near you. What is near?
Right.
I mean, if there's 2 or 3 feet between me and my nightstand, can the phone be on the nightstand, or should we leave it in the kitchen and then come upstairs to sleep?
Ideally, you'd leave it in the kitchen. The guidelines, old and pathetic as they are, say, don't hold it to your head. But there's other studies, many studies that show it's very bad for you, for your sleep habits, both the light and the radiation, and also a lot of endocrinal disruption caused by your sleep itself being disrupted by the artificial light, in addition to the radiation.
This may be a question for a doctor or medical group, but are we seeing negative outcomes in terms of cancer and things like that as a result of radiation from these devices yet?
The National Institutes of Health published a study some years ago. Linda Birnbaum was the head of the NIH unit that did the study, Dr. Linda Birnbaum. And they showed in humanized mice an increase in cancer. There's also a lot of other studies that will show that low intensity chronic exposure can lead to chromosomal damage. There's a German study recently out.
Okay, so in just a few seconds, we got to let you go, Joe. But what if someone has to take one thing away from you this morning? What would it be? Parents or just any cell phone user?
Keep it away from your body. Don't let your kids have it near them. And go into your phone store and ask for the safest phone they have, and they'll probably not be able to show you with any competency what is their safest phone. The industry should start competing on safety.
Yeah, really good idea there. Okay, Joe Sandry with the Environmental Health Trust, thank you so much for the major heads up this morning. We really appreciate your time.
Okay, so they're preaching to the choir, right? We all know about cell phones and radiation, but of course, many people out there don't. So while we could look at this and say it's about time, wow, the news is actually covering this. I'm telling you, they're covering this because they're gonna start coming out. Just like the earbud story. If you didn't see the story I did over on my other channel, I'm sure everybody on this channel is already subbed to the other channel. But if you didn't see the video I did on earbuds, just check it out because they're talking about now something that everyone should know. These Bluetooth devices, even like the earbuds, okay, are emitting radiation, and it's very unhealthy for you to keep these things in your ears. People are becoming wise to it, but it's not about people becoming wise to it. We have to look at why the media is actually finally covering these things. They're preparing to get you ready for the next wave, which of course is in your body. Here's some clips that I've covered over the years. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, they've been telling us about this. They've been telling us flat out, even the president of Nokia, these big corporations, these phone companies, they're telling us that 6G by 2030, that this tech will be in you. So in order to get rid of your phone, to get it in you, they have to convince you. So that clip you just saw was the first wave to prepare you for this.
The Matrix. Control. The Matrix is a computer-generated dream world built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this.
Future, you will have such a good digital twin that you'll be able to go into the metaverse, into a virtual reality world, turn a dial, pull a switch, feel around, and actually change it in the real plant.
Absolutely. And this is not far off. I mean, the physical and the digital worlds, they will grow together, and the result is exactly what you just said.
I wanted to ask when you all think we're going to move from this form factor to something that's on your face, glasses, and when computing's all on the edge.
All right, 50 seconds. Who wants to answer quickly?
I think it will go. It will. First of all, it will definitely happen. I was talking about 6G earlier, which is around 2030. I would say that by then, definitely the smartphone as we know it today will not anymore be the usual kind of the most common interface. Wow. Many of these things will be built directly into our bodies.
6G will liberate human potential. It will transform the way we live, the way we work, connecting human worlds, physical worlds with digital worlds. And that will unleash new human possibilities.
Stunned by the sudden rollout of Rook Unlimited's most fantastic device ever, the Smart Mark. Because the Smart Mark is more than just a phone. It's part of you. Use it as cash and even shoot video. Distribution points are all over the city. The Rook Unlimited Smart Mark is worth the wait.
The Smart Mark has brought order to my life.
And the best part? It's absolutely free.
23% of the population has been given the Smart Mark, number one.
Time to test our system numbers. Put our new recruits to work. Subtly.
We should find the Flex Fighters.
I ought to find the Flex Fighters.
We should find the Flex Fighters.
You call yourself a man of science. World order is our destiny. Submit to a Smart Mark and join the glorious victory of order over chaos.
People think Smart Marks are brand new Rook tech that will improve their lives.
But your chip makes it possible to control everyone in Charter City, whether they're marked or not.
So again, they've been telling us and conditioning us into what 6G will be. They've been telling us it's going to be in your body. If you ask a common person, you go, hey, it's going to be inside your body today, right? They're going to say, no, it's not. No, I'm not going to let it inside my body. No, I like my phone. They like the things they have now. There's going to be a lot of things that they're going to do to get people off of their phones, but it's not going to be permanent because people are so dependent on the technology. They can't think without their technology. So they're not going to go, hey, I'll get rid of my phone. I'll start living off grid. Kind of like a lot of us are doing now. I'm trying to go backwards. Okay, I'm trying to get away from the tech, from the internet. Okay, that's what I'm trying to do for, health purposes, right? Because we're all still inundated with this, but I'm not reliant anymore on getting knowledge from the internet. Not that I ever really was. I owned lots of books about the things that I discuss, and I have things for, to prepare myself to learn how to do other things in the event that the grid does get shut down. But say hypothetically the grid went down tonight. Are any of these people going to know how to farm? Are they going to know how to clean water, find water? Are they going to know how to, do first aid, et cetera? No, they're not, because they would just Google search it, right? So the people are not going to want to get away from the tech. But if they tell them, right, in a little by little, starting, say, today, over the next 2 years, if there's a story once a week, right, then starts once a day about, well, your cell phone, one, it's hackable, right? Even though they've told us they're going to hack humans, so they could talk about, well, your cell phone, it's, if you're not using, this certain PIN or the, biometric, coding, as in like biometric passwords, using your thumbprint or your eyes to get, into your phone, people can access your phone, right? So they're going to do these little things to make people give up more of themselves for their tech, right? We see that even with Google and Gmail now. You have to do passcodes. I told you guys about what YouTube does for me to create a channel. I have to get people to take pictures. I have to, I have to get phone number. I mean, it's an unbelievable process, and it's just going to get worse and worse, of course. And this is all about eventually having it inside of you. So what I mentioned earlier about this is stories come out little by little about cancer, little by little about mental health, depression, being able to have children. They'll start preparing people that way to move from the phone to getting it in you, because ultimately when you hear that guy talk about 6G being in you, yeah, I get it. Right now, if we look at the world right now, are there suckers who will go and get it? Of course. How much of the population would go do that? 1%, 2%? The people who lined up to get potion, they could easily be convinced into that. So you want to say 20%? Okay. But the rest of the people go, no, I'm perfectly fine with the way I have things now. I'm perfectly fine. Just like before the cell phone, everyone was like, I don't need a cell phone. I'm perfectly fine picking up a landline, making phone calls that way. I don't need to text. I don't need to be right. So little by little, they've all become so obsessed with their technology. They'll start by going, I don't want to get rid of it. I'm not going to get rid of it. And over time, the more they hear, the more things happen, the more psyops and false flags happen, they'll eventually go in that direction. So I think we're going to see more propaganda out there, which isn't really propaganda. I mean, this is obviously 100% true. There are major concerns over cell phone radiation. It's causing a lot of the problems, but so are those towers. Now, you're not going to hear them talk about the towers, okay? Because the human being is going to be hooked up to the tower, right? So you're not going to hear them ever talk about the tower. They've gone out of the way to even hide some of the towers like I talked about. They're not going to talk about that. But they will talk about the phone itself because ultimately they have to convince people to go from the phone to get it inside of them. And a lot of people aren't going to want to do it, right? But then when the government tells you in 10 years that they're not going to sell phones anymore after they get everybody, slowly used to having it inside of them, then they'll say, just like they did with 2G, 3G, 4G, they make you upgrade your phone. If you're not familiar, that's what they make you do. I had a flip phone for a while. Made me get rid of that. Wouldn't allow me to have service on the phone anymore. To shut the phone off. And they offer you a free phone, right? That's how it goes. So eventually they'll say, okay, people can have it in them. You can still have your phone. Then little by little they'll say, well, Verizon and these companies don't want to sell it anymore because they don't want to be on the hook for causing cancer or causing radiation problems. It's a health hazard. They're trying to look out for you, right? And these people, just like the suckers that most of them are, they'll go along with it. And then they'll weigh the pros and cons of having the tech in them, which I ultimately believe is the mark of the beast, or giving all of that up. But you probably won't be able to buy or sell or do anything without it. We could see where this is headed with all the stuff I've covered with biometrical data over the years, even recently, right? Even the thing in LA with biometrics, looking at your facial scan, right? That's what we're headed towards. But this type of news is going to start coming up, and people are going to be like, like I say, if all of the news is fake, but it's used as a propaganda machine, that's all that it is. So when they tell you truths like this, there's an agenda behind it. It's not because all of a sudden Fox Chicago has a soul and wants to cover this. NBC obviously tried to spin the earbuds, but they're bringing attention to EMF. They're bringing attention to the dangers of EMF and cancer and all other things by design, because ultimately then, well, on the flip side, on the backside, at the same time, you'll start hearing about technology being embedded in you and how the beneficial health, like the Neuralink, all this other stuff that I've covered. So I had to cover that for everybody out there. Hope you're all doing well. I really appreciate everybody who has come over and subbed to this channel. I know it's annoying to constantly have to do this, but I'm going to just build out as many as I can, put as much content out as I can. That's the only way to reach new people. I see new people coming in, and that's just what I'm struggling with. Being able to reach new people, but I obviously see the writing on the wall with a lot of what's going on here. But while I'm still able to do it, while I can still breathe, number one, but while I'm still able to do this without a digital ID, I'm going to try to reach as many people as I can. So there'll be a lot of content. I'm motivated to get the content out, but also dealing with the, it's not very encouraging every day to go from, what my channel once was to what it is now. And then also knowing that these channels get suppressed, right? A lot of people out there have their own channels. They get suppressed over and over and over, having to rebrand. So there's a lot of weight that it does bring you down to the point where you're like, oh man, nobody really watches the content, cares about the content. But I want everyone out there to know I'm going to try as hard as I can to put out the best content that I can, as much content as I can, while I still can. So I appreciate everybody who came over and subbed. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always and your families.